here we are again then. That's what you normally say, but I thought I'd say it today.
No, you say it. That's good.
Right, here we are again then, everybody. Welcome to Customer Experience R&R with my good self, Richard Knight, or Rich Knight, depending on, my mood, and him over yonder. Ryan Uxtable.
Ryan Uxtable, or Rye, as I'm sometimes called.
Riri. Here, Riri. Right, moving on. That could go down a horrible rabbit hole of a conversation. We don't want to be there.
We don't want to do that, do we? So,
no.
Have you had a good week?
Oh, I've had a good week actually in lockdown. It's been an interesting lockdown. I've been hearing a lot of talk on social media from a lot of local retailers and how disgruntled they are in terms of them not being able to sell their stuff. But if you go to a supermarket, they can sell their stuff in there as well. So it's a real starting to boil up, I think, at the moment, particularly and how it makes you feel as a customer as well. You've got these various options. Where do you go? What can't you do? What can't you do? It's been quite interesting from that point of view. You?
Yeah, it's great. It's great. Just on that point, I was in my local Tesco's over the weekend, just nipped in to get some fruit and veg, and they actually said to us as we went in, you can't go. They've got one of those sort of travelator things. You go upstairs to the, they closed all that off, which I thought was quite interesting. So, but yeah, I suppose the bigger point in all of this is, whether it's the supermarkets or the local independents, you can just get on your phone and order stuff from that well-known Jeff Bezier store. So everyone, I guess, is at a disadvantage, isn't it? I suppose if you spoke to the supermarkets, they would be saying, well, what's stopping people going online and order it on eBay or Amazon or wherever, which is a fair point, I think. But for those independent retailers, I totally get it. They've had to close, and yet the supermarkets, you can walk in and buy clothes there, or not as the case.
Yeah, so there's quite a bit of problem solving that's got to be going on at the moment, isn't there? Different ways of looking at things. We've spoken about the P word before, but actually there's still some different ways of doing things and solving those problems. And actually that segues quite nicely into who you've been interviewing. Actually, with Margaret Oscar. We'll talk about that, and we'll actually get into the interview in a moment, shall we? What was that all about?
Let's do that. Yeah, so Margaret, this is one of the, we've had some brilliant speakers on over the last 25 episodes, but Margaret for me was probably one of the most honest and straightforward interviewees I've ever spoken to. So Margaret is a communications and colleague engagement specialist based down in Torquay. Margaret talks very candidly, as you'll see in the interview, about about client engagement, colleague engagement being absolutely critical critical to the success of your business. Let's take a listen and see what she says.
Crack on. Absolutely.
Well, good morning, Margaret. Margaret Oscar is an employment and comms specialist, has got many years of experience in this area. And I'm going to let Margaret introduce herself in a second, but we're delighted to have Margaret with us on today's Warble, following our Warble last week, where we were talking about the second lockdown coming into play. And of course, that happened last Friday. So we've been in this now for a week, and I'm sure you've all found your own ways of coping with lockdown too. But what we were really keen to do at R&R is to bring a specialist like Margaret in to talk about how she sees the world around continuing to motivate and engage employees in your business, and make sure that you're doing that in a way that's communicating brilliantly well with your employees, your teams, and your clients. So Margaret, tell us a bit about what you do and how you see the world in lockdown too.
What do I do? Well, I'm described as an internal communications and employee engagement specialist. And what that means today is it's not internal comms 10, 15 years ago was about making sure your employees had all the information they needed. Today, it plays a much bigger role. It plays a role in terms of creating a better understanding with your employees in terms of their purpose and the value and the role that they play in the organisation. And it generates a really good relationship between a business and its people. And that's what internal communications or employee communications is about. It's not just about disseminating information. It's about creating a really good relationship between an organisation and the employees within it. Because at the end of the day, those employees are the people that are delivering whatever it is you are promising to your customers. Whatever the experience, the product, the design is, the service that you're telling your customers you can do better than anyone else, these are the guys that then deliver against that. So if they don't get it, or they don't agree with it, or they don't like it, they'll go out there and make liars of you. Not intentionally, but that will be the bottom line. So for me, building any kind of organisation always starts from the inside out, not the outside in. So the power is in making sure that the people in your business are delivering not only exactly what you are promising to the customers, but they want to do it. And that's where the engagement piece comes in. Are they like-minded? Do they understand what's expected of them? And can they then deliver against that? That's what I do.
I love that comment you just made, and it's really, really hammered home to me, this whole point around, and the comment I love is, don't let your people make liars of you, because and that is so true, because
harsh, but that's the reality. Yeah.
It is harsh, but it absolutely is the reality. And now is not the time to dress things up, is it? Because businesses are in stress. We're seeing incredible pressure being put on employees and teams at the moment to deliver in what are really difficult circumstances. And this make lies piece, that a point that you make, I see that a lot in brands. And what I mean by that is, I'll look at a client's website or a brand's website, and often there is lots of well-intentioned words that are on that website about how they want to treat clients and customers and how they want to treat their employees, but actually the physical and mental aspect, I suppose, outputs of that aren't always delivered, because, to your point, that internal comms piece, that internal engagement piece isn't strong enough to reinforce the message. Would you agree with that?
I would totally agree with that. It comes back to what I said originally, that relationship. If when we hit crisis, we hit a huge change, a climate today that we're living in, if at the beginning you do not have that solid relationship with your people, trusted and respected, everything falls apart. And pumping out information about the do's and don'ts that you want them to do, it's useful, but it doesn't help. It doesn't always help, because that relationship's already broken in the beginning. So why are they going to listen to you? Why would they deliver?
And so those, the other thing I was interested in your opening comments that you made, when you talked about how communications used to be almost this command and control element of comms, to how you see it now. How do you think, what's your view, and what would your tips be to businesses that perhaps go into stress and maybe revert to that sort of command and control type? What would you be saying to business now if they were trying to do that?
Listen to your people. For me, listening is a really crucial leadership skill. And the reason I say listen is co-creating a solution is a really, really powerful tool to have, particularly in a time of change and crisis, when you need your people to step up and give you that extra % in terms of their effort. If you hand and dictate out a series of solutions and tell people, this is what I want you to do, go off and do it, they might do it, they probably will. They won't do it well, because for them it will be a tick box exercise. If, however, you present the problem to your people and you problem solve together, so the solution is co-created, they'll not only own that solution, they'll do their damnedest to make sure it goes forward. So I'll give you an example. You must have at some point in your life hired a rental car. Right. Did you wash that car?
No.
Right. Because it's not yours, right?
Yeah.
You don't own it. You have no responsibility for it. You sign your waiver for all the insurance. If you crash it, you can walk away. You have no responsibility for its future, because somebody else then deals with the aftermath of that, or they take it away if you hand the car back. When you hand your people a solution, instead of asking them to help you with the answer, what you're saying to them is, you don't own this business. You have no responsibility for this business. You have no responsibility for its future. That's the message you're giving out. But you co-create that solution with them. They will not only own it, they'll make sure they look after it, because 50% of it came from them. And you've shown them the respect of listening, working together to come up with a solution, and then they'll take it forward. And that's where the building the relationship with your people internally using communications comes in. That's the really important role between your organization and your employees. Having that trusted and respected relationship is the thing that ultimately delivers against whatever your corporate strategies and plans are.
So the co-creation plan that you talk about, I'm interested to explore this with you a little bit further, because it makes perfect sense, doesn't it, in terms of if your people are engaged and they understand the direction the business is going on. And actually, we often with clients map the process, the employee journey, and therefore the subsequent client journey based on the employee understanding your process. In other words, co-creating that plan. And I guess in normal times that can be challenging, can't it? Because you've got lots of different you'll have lots of different views and lots of different opinions, and trying to create that co-defined plan, as you mentioned it. So in times when businesses are in stress, what would your, I guess, top 3 tips be to engage your employees to help co-create that plan in a way that is fast and dynamic and gets the results?
I think the 3 things for me is, first of all, recognize that within your internal audience there are segments. People keep saying the whole country's in the same boat. We're not. We're in the same storm, but people are in different boats. And within your internal community, you're going to have people who are regarded as your key workers, who have got to be providing your essential services, for instance. But you mustn't forget about the people who, in the background, are doing the business as usual pieces as well. Yeah. So always make sure you're looking at your people as a whole, and not just the ones that are in the spotlight because there's a crisis going on. Because it's the guys that are doing the BAU that are propping up the key workers.
Yeah.
The second thing I would say is you can't make everyone happy. Doesn't matter what you do. People are individuals. So trying to pump out communications that are going to keep everyone happy during these times won't work. You can keep everyone informed. And that's what it's about. Because my third point would be, the question they will be asking you is, what are you expecting of me? What should I be doing?
Right. Yeah. So it's protecting BAU.
Yeah.
It's keeping everyone informed and being really clear on expectation. Those are really 3 really clear messages, aren't they? I love that.
Yeah, and that then, as a result, reduces, if you like, the anxiety levels, because if people know what's expected of them, know that they haven't been forgotten about, they're recognised, even if they're not in the spotlight, and know that what they're getting from you is authentic. You're not trying to falsely keep people happy. You're being realistic. They can handle it. They can handle whatever's thrown at them.
And I guess it's a real fine line, isn't it? I mean, you and I both come from large corporate backgrounds, and we will have had experience in clearly not of a pandemic in those backgrounds, but we'll have had experience of trying to get difficult messages or messaging to the front line. And you're absolutely right. People are individuals. They'll make their own minds up about the communication that they're receiving, and they'll. I talk a lot about this in terms of how do you control the facts and the opinions. And I learned very early in my career, just be clear on the facts, and the opinions will take care of themselves.
Absolutely.
So I love the simplicity of that 3-step message in terms of supporting that BAU, being clear with your expectations of others, and you can't please everybody. And I think that really, if I'm sat in a boardroom today thinking about, right, what do the next 3-4 weeks look like? What does post lockdown look like for my internal comms? We're moving into Christmas. It's a minefield. I was there's a story I'd like to share, and I'm not an employee of this particular organisation, but it really hit home for me over the weekend how small gestures make such a big difference to making you feel confident. So I was lucky enough to be involved last week in a law firm's partners conference, and they asked me to come on and talk about customer experience. Lots of partners, about 50 odd partners, and I went on and I did my bit, and it was a really great conversation, and I didn't think any more of it, and that was that. And then on Saturday morning I had a little knock at the door, and there was a box of Camel Valley wine that had been sent to me as a thank you from the managing partner for my contribution. And although that's not technically falls into what you've just said, I think that the little big things of recognizing what stakeholders, team members, partners are doing for you during these really difficult times really engaged me in that message that they were trying to get across as well. I thought, how brilliant is that somebody has continued to recognize something that I'd done. And I suppose my add to what you said this morning is, don't forget to do those small things, because they really matter.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Reward and recognition is incredibly powerful. It's more popular, I think, than sex and money, apparently, in the research.
Brilliant. So, we are definitely getting you on again, because I love how candid you are. It's just brilliant.
That's a fact. That's a fact, though, Ryan. That's a fact.
Not an opinion. It's a fact. Yeah, that's true.
It's a fact. I have the research.
And Margaret, you've got a glittering career at Tate and Lyle and many other massive businesses. In your experience, having to, over the years that you've worked in those big companies, has business ever been facing such a hard challenge?
I don't think in my entire career we've ever had to live and work in an environment like this. This is World War atmosphere, isn't it? Lockdowns and rations, and I think this second lockdown is people are a little less anxious in terms of the day-to-day living needs. I think they recognise that you don't have to rush out and queue outside supermarkets for hours now. Everything seems to be a little more normal, but they're now anxious about the future, as in, is this going to be our future? This constant in out lockdown. How long will it be before, if at all, we ever return to the normality that we knew before this virus hit us? And those anxiety levels are also fueled by, I think, a recognition that the workplace is changing. There are going to be some permanent changes. People are no longer fixated on location of work, because we've proved for most of this year that for the majority of us, it no longer matters. And I think that's going to have an impact on all sorts of things in society, not least commercial property, work locations.
Yeah.
Think about it.
And just that point, Margaret, I guess that also would need to change the strategy of, everything you've talked about this morning about how you communicate, how you, get to those people if they're not all in an office, that the way the business pivots needs to take your team with you. Yeah,
absolutely. So at the moment, all of my clients are all using digital technology to communicate with and try to keep engaged with their employees. The biggest ask, and I do regular pulse surveys with everyone, the biggest ask, and this is across the board for all clients, is how do we replace the social element, that social relationship that all the employees had in the office with their colleagues. And that's a difficult one. And all we can do is find a way of providing a COVID-safe meeting space for people, and trusting that people will adhere to, whatever the restrictions are. But we are social creatures, and there is something that seems to be lost. And in all the research I'm getting back, between people, across a screen in terms of body language and reading tone, being able to look someone in the eye and instantly seeing and recognizing a reaction. You don't get that across the best of video conference technology. So that there is something that's missing at the moment in that work relationship, and I'm not sure it can be replaced. But to come back to your point, it can be recognised. And I think employers need to own up and say, we do recognise that there is a percentage of the relationship missing.
I remember when we met before lockdown, and one of the things that struck me when I was talking to you when we were having a cup of coffee in that gorgeous little cafe that you frequent, Weesup on Torquay Harbour. You must go there, everyone, when it reopens. But one of the things you said to me that really resounded big time with me was, even though we may not be able to, sit in the office, have a cup of coffee with somebody, go to lunch with somebody physically, you advocate, don't you, that should still happen, even if it's virtually?
Oh, totally. So with one of my clients, I have forced coffee breaks into people's diaries for the whole organisation. So every team have twice a day forced into their diaries at a certain time coffee breaks. If they can make them, they make them. If they can't, they've got a meeting, that's fine. Because let's face it, the reality is if you're sat across a desk with someone, you can't always go to lunch together, depending on what's happening in your diary. But what that has done is it has partially given them back the social engagement they used to have with their colleagues. They literally make themselves a cup of coffee, get the bickies out, and all sit and chat to each other about utter rubbish for 15 minutes, twice a day.
Brilliant.
And so that is bringing back the spirit of the workplace across a digital platform for the moment, until we can find a better way of doing it.
I think that's brilliant. Some of these tips that you talked about this morning are incredibly practical and doable and really easy to replicate for businesses. Margaret, it's been an absolute joy talking to you this morning. And Margaret, how can people get in contact with you if they want to chat to you further about some of the ideas you've talked about this morning? I'm
on LinkedIn, Margaret Oscar. Drop me a message. I'm always monitoring my LinkedIn account, so I will see it and respond as soon as I can. If you are in the middle of a major change in your organisation, I can also help with that. I have a suite of change specialists that I work with as well. If you just want to build a better relationship with your people internally, then I can help you with that too. Brilliant. I would say that if I were to leave you with one key thought, my key thought to anyone out there that's thinking about or worrying about how they manage their people through this crisis at the moment, I would say that when you get through the other side, whether the other side of this is normal or not, ask yourself this: as an employer, what do you want to be remembered for? Because if you can answer that question, I can help you plan the future. What a great way to close off this chat. Margaret, thank you so much for your time this morning. It's been an absolute pleasure. We are definitely going to get you back when we get out the other side, just to see how things have progressed for the organisations you're working with. But some great tips there, Margaret. Thank you for your time. Thank you. Nice to see you again.
Well, she certainly is very straightforward in her views, isn't she? I love that. That was great. Really fantastic. I think that the best one for me was that don't let your people make liars of you. Ooh. It's so true. It's so true, isn't it?
It is. You look at what people say about their brand on their website, and they paint this wonderful picture. We're client focused, we're customer focused. Our customers are our most important thing. And then when you have an interaction with them, and you bump into some of their people who aren't engaged in the fact that you might have said that, they are making a liar of your brand. It is so true.
It is. And I think the antidote to that is that involving people. Involve your teams in what you're doing. Because you've got that title after your name, or you've given yourself a title, which often happens, doesn't mean you can't have opinions from other people within organisations. They've got views, they've got ideas that actually you may not have thought of. And if you bring people together, you can really make a difference. And the analogy with the hire car, it's not yours, you're not invested in it. A lot of employees have that similar view of work. It's nothing to do with me. So that for me was really interesting because of the impact and the effect that motivation can have on that whole piece as well. So it's a really interesting place for your employees to be in. Are you asking them? Are you finding out what's going on? Have they got some views for you to consider, to think about? Involve them in it, and they shall be really interested in the outcome, rather than just, well, it's nothing to do with me because I'm just doing my job. That's all it is. So that and the impact that has on your customers, again, huge.
It's a really brave thing to do, isn't it? Because I find when I talk to a lot of my clients about their colleague engagement, some are really up for listening, want to understand, want to make a difference, and some are less so. And when we talk that through and we explore that, there is a worry actually that they're not sure what they're going to hear, and sometimes they or the organisation may not be ready to hear that feedback. And I think the points that Margaret so eloquently lays out for us all in that interview is the opinions are going to be there. How your people feel, unless you collaborate with them, unless you co-create the plan as she talked about and involve them in that, so they have ownership around it. Perhaps you should be worried because if you've not spent the time in engaging your people in that, then you don't know what the view is. You don't know what the opinion is. And I suppose the other bit that I'd add into that, and again, I've talked about this a number of times during this series, is the three different journeys that we measure at Insight 6: the process, the employee, and the customer. The employee journey, the mapping of that, and getting them to understand the process and what the customer's potentially going to think, it's no accident that the employee journey is right in the middle of the mapping, because it is at the center of getting that message right to customers. Because if your process cocks up, who deals with it? Who deals with the customer? It's the employee. And
the key thing there is to actually ask regularly as well. A lot of people do that. Well, let's wait till the end of the year and find out how we did. Employees, what do you think of us? What do you think of the company, etc. You can't wait till the end of the year. You've got to ask on a more regular basis. And something like Instant Insight, our in the moment real-time feedback mechanism, enables you to do that as well, because you can then understand what's going on in the here and now. And actually, if you're not asking them for their opinion, if you're not involving them, you can find out in the moment rather than waiting to the end of the year and having more problems. So it's making sure you get a little bit quicker. And then, of course, the other thing that is available as well is around the motivation. So where are they? Are they motivated enough to want to be involved? And something like motivational maps, which is also available, you can actually start to understand exactly what level of motivation your individuals and your teams have, and why that might be. And then you can put in strategies to adjust that slightly. So, in terms of what Margaret was talking about, that actually then leads quite nicely into, in a couple of weeks' time, I'm going to be speaking to Mr. James Sale, the creator of motivational maps, actually, and the importance of motivation for employees. And it is that real desire, it's the energy that your teams have. And at the moment, energy is a premium. We've got to make sure people are firing on all cylinders, because their energy comes through into the customer experience, without a doubt. So watch out for a couple of weeks' time. We'll be speaking to James about that and how that can impact your customers' motivation as well. So that's what we're going to be doing.
It should, when you speak to James, rather, it should link really nicely to certainly some of the great challenges I think Margaret posed. That she talked about, didn't she? The different working arrangements at the moment, and how do you create normality around that type of engagement? And one of the things that for me was very powerful and helped, certainly in her view, helped motivation, was the fact that she'd insisted in some of the organizations she was working with and within, was that they put in coffee breaks into their diaries. They were at home.
Yeah, simple
and
stuff.
People had to just, join, and if they wanted to join and just talk about last night's TV or the weekend or what they were doing that night or what their plans were for next year. And, that That is so important. And, you know, we're recording this, aren't we, on in the week where there is some hope now. We've got a vaccine and that's 90% effective. So, you know, businesses and people will very quickly turn to that as the opportunity to extricate ourselves from where we find ourselves. And of course, we will, and that is great. But I had this brilliant analogy about the virus, and I think the vaccine rather, and I think this really pertains to kind of customer journeys as well. They said the way I would describe where we are with the virus is if you're stood on the train platform, you're looking up at the board, and you know that eventually the train is coming, or you know the vaccine is coming. And where we are now is you're looking down the track and you can just see two lights in the distance of the train.
I love that.
And I thought that is a brilliant analogy for actually all of this stuff as well, because if you are not aware of what your people and your customers are saying about you, which goes back to Margaret's point, you can't take the relevant action to move from, you know, that train that's sort of way off the platform to bringing it in and getting the doors open and getting everybody on board. So, you know, it's a really important point. Co-create the plan. She talked about it, didn't she? Co-create the plan. Don't let your people make lies of your brand, and engage them. Don't make that the hire car. Make that the car that they purchase. And I want to drive. Absolutely.
Well, what wise warbling words to end on there today from the West Country. So I think we'll disappear. See you soon. Thanks very much.
Thanks a lot. Like, share, and comment. I've been Ryan Huxley.
I've been Rich Knight. Cheers.
Cheers.